Supervisors will call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors, our regular November meeting. This meeting has been properly noticed. Your agenda will indicate that Pastor Dennis Nelson was scheduled to be with us this morning, but unfortunately Pastor Nelson is out of town. So that responsibility falls back to the president of the Hudson Area Ministerial Association, who supplies us the list. And when one of the members does not fulfill their responsibility, it falls back to the president. So at this point, I will invite Pastor Tim Sackett, who is the current president of the Hudson Area Ministerial Association, to favor us with the invocation. All rise.
Thank you very much. You're right about it falling back on the leadership when it happens that way. Some thoughts before I came here today was how many times everyone here has many hard decisions to make, and some of those decisions are accepted, and some of those are rejected, and some are popular, and some are unpopular. But all of us, no matter what position we live in life, we have to have our ups and downs with our own character and people's opinions of us, and how would you like to have somebody give you an approval rating every week, whether you're up or down in people's approvals, and that would make us probably not even want to leave the house if we had to live by other people's approvals of us. And the Apostle Paul ended his last letter to Timothy by saying, he even mentioned someone named Alexander. He said, "Alexander the metal worker did me a great deal of harm." And then he said this, "The Lord will repay him for what he has done." He warns Timothy, "You too should be on your guard against him because he strongly opposes our message." But then he concludes how he felt about his own relationship with the Lord and with everyone else by saying, "At my first defense, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me." And he says, "May it not be held against them." Then he says, "But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it, and I was delivered from the lion's mouth. And the Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom." And so he concluded in his letters that his image, his character, was so well developed by God himself that man could not do him as much damage as Paul thought it could happen. He certainly spent a lot of time defending himself for his message, and I know that you will be doing that as you serve on this board. You will spend a lot of time defending your message. And with that, I just want to encourage you in prayer by praying this prayer. Dear God in heaven, I know that you are in the heavens and you are enthroned, and the scripture says that you are enthroned in wisdom and in power. And again, these decisions that are made in these meetings and the voting that happens in these decisions will always please someone and will always displease someone else. But the encouragement for us and for the people serving in this board, the encouragement comes from you and from your word. May it be a comfort and a guide for them. We know that complaints come more easily than compliments. And even to you, Lord, our groaning and our complaints are heard. But Lord, we thank you for the constant encouragement, the constant uplifting that you give. And may everyone here be encouraged and guided by the comfort that you give them and by the wisdom and the courage that they have. And we all long for the day when we will hear Jesus say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Let that be the goal that guides us. Let all of us be workers in your field, and let the people of this county board be the servants and the workers in this governing board for their decisions and for the outcomes. And Lord, help them realize that you have full charge as the one who reigns over all of heaven and earth. And for this day we give you thanks and ask for your courage, encouragement, and your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Amy, are you ready? Supervisors, please indicate your attendance for the roll call. I believe that we have 3 absences this morning. Supervisors Robert Scheer, Supervisor Lawrence Sather, and Supervisor Buzz Marzoff are not with us. All have indicated to me the reasons for their absence this morning, and all are excused in their absence. We do have 16 supervisors present, and that is a quorum. And with that, Mr. Administrator, do you have a report in addition to the budget presentation this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In respect of our time this morning, I would like to preserve my report time for budget presentation this morning. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. Supervisors, the agenda has been distributed for your review and consideration. In just a moment, we will entertain a motion on the approval of the consent agenda. Let me take just a moment to indicate, I'll be right back to you, Alfie. Just let me indicate a couple of things with respect to our regular agenda. Our first agenda item this morning is our 2012 proposed budget. That will be presented by the county administrator. This is an administrator-presented budget this year for our first time. There will be a full budget presentation, and then we will have a public hearing. The public hearing will last as long as there are persons that are wanting to speak or address the board with respect to that. Since this is a public hearing, no permission is required to address the board. Any citizen is permitted to address the board during the time of a public hearing, so you need not request any written permission. Simply ask for the acknowledgement of the chair, and you'll be acknowledged and can address the board if there's any supervisor that wants to do that. At the conclusion of the public hearing will be closed. At that point, the supervisors will consider and debate the resolution that is in front of us, and ultimately then we'll take action on that resolution. We will then proceed through our agenda as indicated. At about the 10 o'clock hour or thereabouts, depending on where we are in our agenda, we would anticipate taking a brief break, and immediately preceding that break, we are going to have a very brief recognition of St. Croix County, longtime St. Croix County employee who is retiring, and we'll just have a brief recognition of that employee. During the break, I would encourage those of you who may be in attendance for agenda item number 7, and I would anticipate that there are a couple of people here specifically for that agenda item. Those that wish to address the board, keep in mind that we are assembled today as a legislative body. We are not conducting a public hearing of any kind on this resolution. However, our bylaws do permit some public comment on matters that are before the board. So if you desire to address the board on that item, or frankly on any other item, written permission is required, and authorization slips are on the back table. It simply requires you to fill out that form and request the permission, the authorization of the supervisor that represents you. And during the break, you will have time to do that. Now, I'm going to make a ruling of the chair with respect to the amount of public comment we will take during that time. This issue has been debated by this body in several committees, and I suspect that there would be very little new information that has not already been considered by this body. So I don't see a lot of purpose to have a lengthy number of speakers. So I'm going to rule that we will authorize 2 speakers on the affirmative side and 2 speakers on the negative side as far as the resolution is concerned. And I would suggest, if it's possible, during the break time, for you to decide, those of you who may be here on either side of the resolution, either favoring or disfavoring the resolution that's in front of us, to see if you can determine who those 2 speakers are. That would speed up our process. If you are not able to determine that, then from the slips that are handed in, and I would request on your slip you indicate whether you would be speaking on the affirmative side, in other words, favoring the resolution, or on the negative side, in opposition to the resolution. Simply indicate affirmative or negative. And if it cannot be determined who your 2 speakers are from both sides, then the vice chair and I will simply randomly draw 2 from each side. We're going to keep this as absolutely fair as possible. And as a matter of fact, when we start the conversation with respect to any speakers, assuming there are 4 speakers that wish to address the board, by coin flip, we will start with either the affirmative or negative side. So I don't know how much more random we can make it. And then we will alternate. We will have 1 from one side and 1 from the other side. Again, we want to make this fair, but there is little purpose to have a lengthy number of presentations. The board has received the emails that have been forwarded, so we do have that information. Many of the emails were nearly identical in their wording, but they did have different names, so we're respectful of the fact that we received a number of emails. That is the ruling of the chair. I would ask that that ruling be adopted without objection. If any supervisor does object to that process and wants an unlimited number of speakers, you may object now, and I will submit it to a vote of the body. Hearing no objection, that will be the ruling. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the ruling of the chair is upheld, and we will follow that process then when we get to agenda item number 7, which will be in our normal order of business. So at this point, supervisors and ladies and gentlemen, we will turn the podium over to our county administrator, Pat Thompson, for the presentation. Excuse me, I need a motion on the consent agenda, and I have a motion from Elfie Schrank and a second from Roger Repholz. And as soon as Roger gets his second in, we will proceed to vote. You're voting on the consent agenda, supervisors. Ready? And the consent agenda is adopted unanimously. At this point, we will begin our order of business with agenda item number 1, and that is the presentation of our 2012 proposed budget, and I will turn this now over to our county administrator, Pat Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Vice Chairman, did the chair of the administration committee want to make any comments, or should I just move forward, Madam Chair?
Move forward, Pat.
All right.
And just say briefly that the administration committee has reviewed the budget and brings it to the board with a unanimous vote to pass the budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, County Board of Supervisors. This morning's presentation is hopefully a brief presentation of the 2012 recommended budget. As chairman of the admin committee just commented, the Committee on Administration has reviewed the recommended budget and has brought forward with its stamp of endorsement the recommended budget for county board approval. This process, budget process, actually began prior to my arrival in the months of April and May of this year. The County Board of Supervisors met in a series of meetings as a committee of the whole to begin discussions, preliminary discussions at that point regarding forecasting revenues, forecasting expenditures for the year 2012. I joined the party on June 8th, and soon thereafter began meeting with department heads individually to begin the process of preparing budget recommendations, reviewing the county board's parameters, the county board's guidelines for the budget, and then the process began in earnest during the months of July and August of this year. The budget objectives that were established by the County Board of Supervisors included a zero increase in controllable levy, a zero increase in operational expenses, zero automatic wage increases, and zero use of general fund balance to help offset the county budget, or in other words, to balance the county budget. For those of you, there is I included a paper handout of the PowerPoint, but I will be going through each and every slide that was presented to you in writing, but we wanted for you to have something to take with you when you leave this morning. So these were the four objectives that were established early on in the process during the months of April and May. A pretty high bar, a pretty aggressive set of objectives, but good objectives that will ensure financial stability for county operations. So these were the objectives that I began to address with department heads early on. In summary, the budget, as you can see, is a total of $70,037,962, the far right column, which represents a little over 6.5% decrease from the 2011 budget of $75,063,638. And as you can see, historically, from the year 2008 through 2012, the St. Croix County budget has steadily declined over the past 4 years, 4 to 5 years. I will go over this in more detail later, but I will project that this trend will most likely continue in future years. So the budget you have before you today, the recommended budget, is 6.7% less than the current year budget. Earlier this summer, the board met again as committee of the whole and began reviewing the beginning stages of a strategic plan for St. Croix County. And we as a board, you as a board, established 5 key priorities for us as an administration and county department heads and staff to focus on. And those are listed there: community and economic development, public safety and criminal justice, protecting at-risk populations, transportation, and financial health of the county. And we developed a new mission statement for the board. This budget is driven by those key priorities and the new mission statement. And so we began to develop the budget based on those key priorities. This is a pictorial demonstration of what, based on the $70+ million overall budget, broken out by percentage to those key priority areas that the board has established. Now, there hasn't been any effort to channel dollars into one priority over the other. This is just a snapshot of what the budget is. In future years, the board may or may not choose, or the administration, based on direction of the board, may or may not choose to channel resources into one or other priority areas. That was not done in the 2012 budget. That if in future years we may or may not choose to go that route, but this is the way the budget breaks out as recommended to you today, based on your key priority areas. What the heck is that? That is the board mission and priorities driving the entire process. Now, we're all kind of cogs in life, and but we as a county organization are driven, or will be driven, by your priorities and the county board's mission. So if those arrows are moving in the right direction, and I hope they are, the board, as that cog moves, will then drive departmental goals, measurable department goals, and that is where we are at today. As an organization, the department heads are all in the process of developing measurable department goals based on the board's mission and the board's priorities. That will then turn that cog, the other cog, the top one, will translate into measurable employee goals. That's broken down to the actual employee level. And that in turn will drive pay for performance eventually. We're not quite there yet, but that's the concept. And that very simply explains the entire process. Your mission, your priorities will result in the development of departmental work plans and employee goals and objectives, and eventually pay for performance. One of the key goals of the county board was to have a 0% increase in controllable levy. We have achieved that goal. There is a slight increase in the overall levy, though. For those of you who have looked at the numbers, you'll say, well, Pat, the levy really is increasing. And you're right, it is, by 1.39%. What drives that? Why isn't it flat, straightforward, zero? The controllable part of the levy that we have control over is at 0%, zero increase. What drives the 1.39% increase are the library levy, the bridge aid levy, and post-2005 debt service. And those are dollar amounts that are actually built into the budget. I will go over those in a little more detail as we move forward. So the total levy increase is $381,782, 1.39%. Library funding. The board made a decision prior to my arrival to fund libraries at 100% for St. Croix County. By statute, we're only required to fund at a minimum of 70% by state law. This board made a policy decision to exceed that level and fund at 100%. Good decision by the board. This budget complies with prior board policy of funding libraries in St. Croix County at 100%. It comes at an additional cost of, you can see the difference there. Between 70 and 100%, it's $298,000. That's, I won't say that's discretionary funding, but that's funding by board policy to fund at 100%. This budget complies with that policy and includes funding for St. Croix County libraries at 100%. What drives the budget is what's available. We have to live within our means, just like we do at home. Projected revenues for 2012 are $70,037,962. That's a little over $5 million less projected revenues than 2011. A lot of that is made up of HHS dollars, Health and Human Services, state and federal revenues, and transportation dollars. That is the bulk of the difference in projected revenues for 2012. Nevertheless, we have to build our budget based on what's available, and that's what we've done, and the budget is balanced based on projected revenues. This is a summary, and both of these pages are summaries of the detail that was attached to the county board resolution, which you will be acting on today as a board. I have it broken out by each department with the resolution. These two slides, the revenue and the expense, are a summary of the attachment to your resolution. This is a summary of the total expenses by category for 2012. You will see in most categories the budget is down in general government, in public safety, in health and human services, in highways, in conservation and development, in debt service, all reduced from 2011. The areas that have increased, the capital improvement project, which I will review separately a little bit later in the presentation, is funded at a level of $750,000, but those dollars are derived from 2011 surplus. And so the capital improvement program of $750,000 is not included in the total levy for 2012. It's funded separately through surplus funds. The other areas of increase are the bridge aid, county bridge aids, which is, I mentioned earlier, and that's distributed out through the townships, villages. The other area of increase, education and recreation. And contingency fund of $250,000. What is the capital budget? The capital budget, as I mentioned, is projected, recommended at $750,000. The original request for capital came in slightly over $900,000 in total requests. The administration and the administration committee asked for a list of what that consisted of, which was provided to the committee. The committee approved the recommendation from the county administrator for a capital improvement program in 2012 of $750,000 to be funded from 2011 surplus. I worked with the department heads, and we were able to remove approximately $139,000 plus of capital to get it to the $750,000 level. And that the chart on the right is just kind of a pictorial depiction of where the total capital of $750,000, what areas of the county organization it falls in. For those of you that are interested, if you haven't accessed that list of capital, that can be provided, but I believe it was provided on on your county website. Another key goal of the board was to preserve fund balance. This county has done, based on my review and experience from other county governments where I've worked, you should be applauded for, you as a board should be applauded for your guidance and oversight of the fund balance in St. Croix County. One of your goals was to preserve that. We have been able to do that. There was unused 2011 levy dollars, 132,000 of which could have been applied with board concurrence, which has not been used. There is a little over 0.5% increase in net new construction, amounting to 144,000, which could have been applied. It was not. The general fund, unreserved, undesignated, if we take half of the difference between 25% fund balance and the current fund balance of 33%, which is where we're at, 33%, 50% of the difference between 25 and 33 could be applied to fund balance. We have chosen not to do that. That dollar amount is 1.3 million. It's left in the general fund. What we did apply was approximately $314,000 in sales tax surplus. That is not even the full amount of the sales tax surplus. I believe it's about half, which we did apply to balance. A big part of our budget, and it's no surprise to all of you, is in the area of personnel. I'd say it probably makes up 70% of our budget. Personnel, labor, and all the ancillary costs that go along with having a workforce. But it's also a very important part of the organization. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the employees of St. Croix County doing their work day in and day out. But this budget does not include automatic pay raises. This is another goal, objective of the board. There's 0 automatic pay increases built into the budget. The non-represented pay plan approved by the board earlier this year has been implemented and is accounted for in the budget. There is a small amount of dollars set aside for implementation of that pay plan, which as of July 1st, a small handful of employees are scheduled based on the implementation of the pay study for pay adjustments July 1. It's in the neighborhood of $16,700, around $17,000. That's in the budget. But those pay increases are not automatic, and they will be based on review by the department head and the county administrator before being approved. There's also $200,000 set aside in the budget for pay for performance implementation. It's one of the board's goals, it's one of the administrator's goals to have eventually pay for performance. We're not there yet, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, but we will be. And the strategic plan and the work that's being done right now to get that put into place will drive pay for performance, and we're on track, we're on target for some sort of recommendation to you as a board for implementation probably mid-year 2012. So we set aside some dollars for that. That's an estimate. It probably won't be that much. What did we do with positions in the budget? There are no increases in position in FTE equivalents in the 2012 budget. We, in fact, were able to reduce the workforce slightly, and I've listed some of the positions that through attrition, through vacancies, we have been able to reduce the overall head count for the county. Some of the changes that were requested are listed there. Those were the recommendations made by the county administrator and approved by the admin committee, and I've listed those there. I will say at this point that, and I was going to mention it later, but I'll mention it now, that just because the budget as a snapshot today, reflects that, some positions have been eliminated, or we've been able to reduce the overall headcount. Throughout the course of the year, in 2012, as positions become vacant, the administration, HR, will continue to review all positions as they become vacant. And there will be opportunities presented to the administration through turnover throughout the course of the year to make changes, to realign the workforce, to restructure, to reorganize, to hopefully not increase staff, but hopefully decrease staff, but through realignment and reorganization, we can become even more efficient than we are today. And so, although this is a snapshot as of the budget today, we will continue that process through 2012. Another big part of the budget, another big cost driver in the budget is health insurance as it relates to our workforce. The admin committee and the county administrator set a pretty aggressive goal of trying to reduce the overall costs of health insurance. Initially, earlier in the year, we were facing a little over 25% increase in health insurance costs. We were able to, through the work with our health insurance advisory committee and the health insurance consultant and the health insurance advisory committee, which is made up of workforce employees through almost all of the departments. And at this point, I'd like to thank that committee for providing some pretty good feedback. And we were able to reduce health insurance costs by a fairly significant percentage. Reduced it a little over 11%. We also combined, we had two separate groups of health insurance, union and non-union. We combined those groups. We implemented some co-pays, which we didn't have in place. We increased some prescription drug costs for medication. We also changed the deductibles, increased some deductibles, but we were able to try to minimize, although there is an impact, there is a financial impact on employees with these increased costs, we tried to minimize them, and we tried to listen and to their suggestions, and we tried to take those back and make some changes to what was originally projected to be a 25.6% increase, and we were able to do that and still bring down costs for health insurance. There was a huge change by the state of Wisconsin regarding WRS, Wisconsin retirement. And you as a board have dealt with this issue for many, many months now. There's a $1.6 million projected savings in the budget from the Wisconsin retirement. Those savings, however, will be used to offset increases in health insurance and the huge reductions in revenue, which I pointed out earlier. This will cause, I'm already, although we're working on getting the 2012 budget approved here today, I'm already thinking ahead to 2013. This will create a challenge for us as a board and the administration in working on our 2013 budget. I'm not blind to the fact that these dollars were used to help offset increases in revenue and huge increases in health insurance costs. The county needs to continue to do a good job to keep those health insurance costs low, and we need to make sure we are poised smartly to face whatever the state decides to do with their budget and the federal government, because when Madison sneezes, we catch the cold. And I don't see that changing. And so, and we're not going to have this little, this kind of assistance in 2013. So I'm already thinking ahead as to how we're going to do that. What are some of the challenges, that we continue to face today and in the future? I've mentioned some of them. The economy, I won't get into a discussion on the economy. I'll leave that for people a lot smarter than me. But I don't see it changing real quickly, either one way or the other. I don't think it's going to change rapidly. We're going to continue to face issues with foreclosures, unpaid property taxes, very slight increases in new construction in St. Croix County. Although we see signs of increase, that's positive, but a little over 0.5%. It doesn't have a huge impact on the budget in terms of positive impact, but it's going in the right direction. Our equalized value, we all know where that has been and where it will probably continue to stay for a while. St. Croix County is on the map of the state of Wisconsin as being one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And I believe that trend will continue at probably a lesser level, but I believe that St. Croix County and the work of this board and the Economic Development Corporation and Bill Rubin, they are keeping their eye on the ball, and they are doing everything they can to continue to move that dial. But it's going to be slow, and I can't build a budget in 2013 based on false hope. So it will be built on solid, factual data in 2013, which I'm already preparing for. Continued challenges, as I mentioned, the state and federal revenues. This budget incorporates almost a $2 million reduction in revenues for Health and Human Services. It includes a large reduction, over $1 million in highway, state and federal highway revenues. I don't know if that'll change significantly in future years, but we need to brace and plan for the worst, hope for the best. The governor's budget will continue to evolve. As I mentioned, the state and federal government are in no different shape. The economy in the state of Wisconsin reflects what's happening, and we will bear the brunt, or we will bear whatever we need to, but we need to be smart in terms of what we're projecting for federal and state revenues in the future. This is a depiction of Medicare funding, and this is how quickly things change. As of October 1st, we were notified, or Fred Johnson was notified, that Medicare funding would be reduced immediately by $150,000. And that was October 1st of this year. We already pretty much had his budget put to bed for 2012. We had to crack it open, and the original budget, which I put out, did not show any levy for the nursing home. With the news that came forward on October 1st, that changed that picture. A $150,000 reduction in Medicare resulted in the nursing home going back onto the levy on the amount of $130,000. As you can see, from 2009 through 2012, the levy has dropped dramatically for the nursing home, from almost $1 million to what I had hoped to be a zero in 2012. That's huge over the past 3-4 years. The census is a big driver in all this, and as you all know, the census has we've been struggling to keep it at a capacity level. I believe we were projecting census of 67. Now I believe, based on these projections, we're going to have to work with Fred's going to have to work with his board, and I'll have to work with them to see what adjustments can be made And they are currently in the process of doing that to try to prepare for what the future will be for Medicare funding. Challenges. They continue to present themselves. That's what's fun about this job. We will continue to try to recruit and retain the best and the brightest for St. Croix County. As I mentioned before, we will have staff turnover in 2012. We will have staff turnover between now and the end of the year and in 2012. Each and every position that becomes vacant, we will scrutinize to a great degree, whether or not we need to fill the position. Can we reorganize? What opportunities does it present? Department heads are going to be very tired of me asking questions as to why we need to fill certain vacancies. Some of them we will fill. I'll tell you flat out, we will fill positions, but we will do it strategically and smartly. And we will look at opportunities for change. Capital improvements, I think we're taking a big step forward with this budget, but it's only a step. We need to continue to address the infrastructure in St. Croix County. The $750,000 it doesn't include any large, huge infrastructure projects. It's a maintenance type of budget, and that's where we're at. But we need to start thinking big picture, long term, setting aside. But I think this budget begins that process of setting aside dollars for capital improvements in the future. The admin committee also provided the county administrator flexibility within that capital improvement budget to have flexibility for projects. If during the course of the year we decide that certain projects shouldn't move forward, or if certain projects come in under budget, the administrator working with department heads will have flexibility to reallocate dollars based on priorities as they present themselves. As you all know, lots happens in the course of a year, and the board needs to have flexibility in terms of funding for capital improvement. And the admin committee provided that. Finally, what is GASB? What is that? That's kind of a bureaucratic government accountability standard board recommendation that we need to keep a very close eye on our fund balance. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this board should be commended for the work that you have done. I don't think you need GASB 54 to tell you how to manage your fund balance, but we have to comply with it. And so what it's doing is it's breaking. We have currently 3 separate general fund balances that this board has said you need to stretch that out into 5 separate funds. This is an editorial comment, I probably shouldn't make it, but I think that this was set up for counties that have been squandering their general fund. And that some board has said, you know, counties or cities, municipalities, it's not just counties, it's all local government. And we haven't done that here, you haven't, but we have to comply anyway. So we will update our financial policies and bring those forward to the admin committee for your approval, probably within the next month, because it needs to be in place by the end of the year. And we will do that, and we will comply, and we will continue to monitor fund balance here at St. Croix County. So, closing comments. I think I've talked enough. My voice is getting a little dry, but I would like to thank all the department heads and all the staff, the finance department, Michelle Petrick, Kristen Ziliak in my office, Tammy Funk, Greg Timmerman, all the staff and administration, all department heads, some of them who are here, all the elected officials, for their work on the 2012 budget. It was not easy. I had one county board supervisor came back to me that there was a question, how come there's no one squawking, or no one's really talking about the budget that much. I think that's a reflection that the staff and the board have done their job. I think a lot of the backdoor discussions, or the, like I say, wailing and gnashing of teeth and maybe a little bloodletting, that has taken place between me and the department heads and staff, and we have worked closely together to put together this recommended budget. And we have tried to do a lot of the work that maybe prior committees of the board had to spend days and hours trying to put together a budget. We as a staff, under the leadership or direction of the county administrator and key staff, have been able to put together what I feel is a good budget. Can we do better? Yes. Will we do better? Yes. This was my first crack at it here in St. Croix County. I appreciate all the support and advice, questions and suggestions of the board that you have forwarded to me over the past few months. I appreciate your comments. I especially appreciate your questions that you have asked. We try to be transparent and open, and we try to provide as much information as we can to the board to make a good decision when it comes to adopting a budget. As I mentioned, can we do better? Yes, and we will continue to do that. At this point, I'd like to ask if there are any questions. Yes, James.
When we look at the reductions in the overall budget, I was wondering how much of those are, how do I put this, reductions in that we were told we had to do, i.e. the state is reducing the amount we're given and so we are therefore reducing, and how much is reductions that we are choosing, if you know that information.
Well, there's approximately 100,000 or a million, excuse me. There's approximately $1 million that was reduced through back and forth between the county administrator and department heads. We actually had to reduce operational expenditures in the neighborhood of $1 million, which we had to do to balance. You know, a lot, like you said, and you know, I think it was driving your question, a lot of our budget is, you know, we are an arm of the state. We are, and you know, in some ways more than just an arm. I'd say a leg and half your torso is, and when we get revenue projections from the state, that's how we build our budgets. And, but, you know, I think what you're getting at is, did we do any tough work on the budget? I would say yes, we did. You can ask any department head, you know, whether or not they were asked to pony up, and they were. And that will continue. And as I said earlier, 2013 is not going to be a cakewalk. It's not.
Supervisors, at this point, I would request that you retain your questions until we get into our own budget debate at this point. And now we should segue into...
I have one more, excuse me,
You're not
Mr.
quite
Chair.
done? Excuse me?
Yes, I have one more slide, and it's an important one.
When you asked for questions, that I took as the signal that you were done.
Oh, okay, our audio didn't work, but those people were all clapping, and there was clapping noise that was supposed to be piped in, but...
I see.
But anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Should we clap?
Yeah. Thank you.
Supervisors, you now have heard, and members of the audience, you now have heard the presentation on the budget. We will now move to a public hearing. In order for us to have an action item on the floor as we move to the public hearing, Chair would entertain a motion on the resolution that is presented for us, and this resolution comes from the Administration Committee. Is there a motion? Motion from Supervisor Norton Bauman and a second from Supervisor Wentz. And at this point, I will declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board with either a comment or a question with respect to the 2012 budget? Sir, come on forward. Please identify yourself by name and address, and you have 3 minutes to address the board.
That's a very simple question. My name is Art Juckno. And you need my address?
Please.
1800 Willow Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I noticed that there is about $750,000 in debt service. And my question is, with historically low interest rates, is there any effort to refinance that?
I would defer to the Finance Committee, the Finance Director. I believe that it's a very good question. I think we as a county need to continually look at opportunities to refinance or restructure existing debt. And I have not, since I've been here, I have not personally taken that on, but I'm sure that the Finance Department and the Admin Committee have done that. Could I just have a comment? I'm going to ask the Finance Director to speak to that, if you have a minute.
Sir, if you're going to speak again and you still have some time, you're going to need to be at a microphone.
Go ahead, Michelle. Can you address?
We did explore refinancing our existing debt when we issued our 2010 bond. And we were fortunate that when we actually entered the bond market previously, we got all-time low interest rates, so there were no cost savings to refinancing. It would have been a break-even situation, but we did examine it in 2010.
So you're saying there's no opportunity to refinance this debt at a lower rate?
No.
That's just the economic situation?
It's a function of our interest rates that we're paying are extremely low, and the majority of our debt is going to be paid off within the next 5 years. We do examine it every other year because that's been our trend for issuing bonds.
Well, could I suggest that maybe it should be examined more often?
I can.
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
We'll look at it. That's a good
Okay.
suggestion.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the audience that wishes to address the board on the 2012 proposed budget? And seeing no request, at this point I will declare the public hearing closed. And supervisors, we now have in front of us the 2012 proposed budget and the resolution adopting the 2012 budget. Discussion. Supervisor Malik.
I have this question for you, Patrick. Is there anywhere in this budget plan for 2012 any enhancement, improvement, or new service to our citizens? Or is everything cuts and trying to hold the line?
I would say there's no expansion of county operations built within the budget. If, in most cases, it's maintaining existing levels of service with a close to $1 million reduction in funding. Certainly there will be an impact on service delivery. In certain cases, like the highway department will be doing slightly less construction projects. They will be doing slightly less chip sealing and paving. That's an impact. Health and Human Services, I think that they will have to continue to look at how they deliver services and may have to continue. As you saw in my presentation, they reduced staffing. They will probably be challenged to continue that. So I would, to answer your question directly, There is an impact on service, on certain projects. It is definitely not an expansion of county government. It's a contraction of service. Will the average citizen, taxpayer on the street notice a huge difference? Hopefully not. I don't think so. Because we as a team, we as a group, we as a workforce will pull together and continue to do the job that we have to do, given available resources.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. Pat, a couple questions for you as far as the, we talked about before about the controllable increase in levy, and you explained about the 1.39 uncontrollable portion. I'm of a strong belief that when it comes to levy, every dollar in this is controllable by us. So there is no such thing as an uncontrollable levy. But in my sense is that the board may have passed a resolution previously on the dollar increase for the library. And I don't know if the bridge aid levy increase, if that's something we get to determine, or is that a dollar amount that is set by the state, or how that number comes about at the $177,000. Debt service, obviously, that's set. We've already agreed to that. But I'm kind of curious is when we set out to say we're going to do a 0% increase in levy, why we don't back off on other things that when we've already agreed to supposedly a levy increase in library, previous actions that have taken place. So what questions that come to my mind are, we looked at the amount of, you had the slide there, talks about the fund balances reserved, or preserved, I'm sorry, and that the amounts not applied to the 2012 budget, your slide showed $132,000 available of unused dollars from the 2011 levy. I'm assuming these are dollars we just didn't spend in this budget year, or we don't anticipate spending, and you decided not to roll that over and use it in 2012. So we taxed the citizens already for those dollars, and now we didn't spend them, and so we're not going to spend them. Yet, if we were to take and apply those dollars, that $132,000, our increase in levy then would have been reduced by roughly a third that we've got if we were to use those dollars. That'd be the first observation that I have. Same thing with the amount of the sales tax. There's another $314,000 that was not applied, or I'm sorry, it was applied. So I'm wondering how much of those dollars were not applied. Are there dollars we're leaving on the table from last year, the 2011 year, that could have carried forward into 2012? We had also said by resolution, and you brought a point out about the nursing home levy. Now this board, we had acted saying there would be no levy dollars given to the nursing home for 2012, and that passed, if I recall right, unanimously on this board. That was part of the resolution for the labor agreement that came out of Health and Human Services. We negotiated that, and we passed that as a board here. So I'm a little troubled in that it would appear that you are making a suggestion that we go against a resolution that we've already passed. And if we're going to open up that gate, then we could say, well, why don't we go back and revisit the resolutions that we did for the library? So I'm a little perplexed as far as what we're what we're doing here with this. And I'm wondering if you can answer that, if someone has a question I'd love to hear if someone has a rebuttal to what I've just said, whether we pass that or not. I'm open to hearing it.
I won't rebut what you said, Supervisor Hermson. The bridge, let's talk about the bridge aid levy. That's distributed, that cost is redistributed back out, and those are actual petitions that come through to the highway department for bridge improvements. And so the board adopts those petitions from the townships and villages, and then that cost gets, parlayed out, redistributed back out. So, yeah, I mean, the board could reduce that, but really those costs are reallocated back out based on requests from the municipalities in St. Croix County for bridge work. The library levy, that's board policy. Yes, the administrator could have brought forward a budget at 80% funding or 85 and reduced that. I was following what I had thought was a direction that the board wanted to establish on library funding. As you said, the debt service, that's can't do much with that. Now, the fund balances, certainly you could apply with a 3/4 vote of the board, 75% vote of the board, 3/4 vote. You could apply the $132,000 available of 2011 levy. You could do that as a board. I didn't think we needed to. I think based on the budget that I've recommended, that the part of the budget where you really do have most control over, you're not increasing the levy. Yes, 1.39%, which constitutes debt service, bridge aid, and library. Now, if the board wants to try to reduce that overall, you certainly, with a 3/4 vote, could apply $132,000, and you certainly could apply sales tax. There's enough there between those two funds to reduce that $381,000 to zero.
Supervisor Hermson,
It's board prerogative.
I'm not entering into a debate or discussion with you, but I think there is one factual thing that should be corrected, and Michelle, you can jump in if you wish. The reference to the previous levy dollars are not dollars that we in fact collected. That was levy capacity that was not used. So we did not ever levy those dollars, and they're not sitting someplace. The capacity that is being talked about is previous levy that we could bring forward and add it to this year. But we're not increasing our levy, so it becomes a moot point.
I misunderstood what that dollar amount was.
I just want everybody to understand, we did not ever levy those dollars. Additional discussion.
Would you want to further clarify on the $130,000 going to the nursing home that we had passed? That I thought we had passed a resolution saying we would not do?
Do you want to respond to that, Vice Chair?
I think you may be a little confused on that. As part of the labor agreement that we had with our employees at the nursing home, it was an expectation that perhaps we would not draw on the levy at all with all that they have given back to us. It was an expectation. I don't believe there ever was a resolution saying that we would not have any levy. It was an expectation only.
Is there any way we can confirm that before we agree to this $130-some thousand? Because I seem to recall differently.
Well, Supervisor Hermson, again, I'm hesitant to get into a dialogue here. I don't think that's the role of the chair, but for purposes of clarity, I will confirm what the vice chair has indicated. And as you know, I chaired the negotiations committee, and you were a member of the committee. And the labor agreement that was ratified by this board did have the expectation that the concessionary givebacks from that union would allow us to achieve no levy in 2012, but that's exactly what it was, an expectation.
I will add to that the staff at the healthcare center are adjusting operations as we speak to reduce the impact of this cut in Medicare funding based on certain steps that will be presented to the Health and Human Services Board at a future meeting. The staff is developing a plan to reduce the impact of that $130,000 plus additional dollars in 2012. Because this trend will not go away. And so we are in the process of developing a correction to the operations to withstand this, to try to get this back off the levy. But as the budget is presented to you today, we don't have that.
Supervisor Malik.
There have been several allusions to challenges for the future, and I think that in respect of the challenges of the future, maintaining our fund balances to the best efforts we can of 2012 is one appropriate fiscal step, so I applaud you there. Patrick, I do want to ask you about this challenge of the future. We know that we are going to have an office, a building problem. In fact, we have a problem now in which we are our offices in New Richmond are inadequate. We're having extensive heat loss, roof repairs, other things. It's become to a situation where we're trying to not spend maintenance money on a building that is clearly inadequate, and its highest and best use is as a piece of bare ground, probably. So I want to know if you are planning in 2012 to make a significant progress towards reducing our needs for offices. We've talked before about office sharing. We've talked about the ability of people to work from their cars. That is, the kinds of employees who have travel as a part of their work, to or from the courthouse, and to and from client visits and things like that. Their ability to access information with a laptop as they travel, not as they drive, but as they are in the parking lot, that sort of thing. Would seem in the future to have some prospect of our not needing to have as many offices, because employees could share offices on the occasions when they need to be in a physical office, or for that matter, working from home before they come to work in the day or on certain days of the week. All of those seem to have some potential and to be consistent with advances in modern technology, and I wonder if you have specific plans to make some progress towards getting us to the stage where when we ultimately have to replace that building in New Richmond, we can build it as small as possible. Long question, probably your answer will be short, but I would prefer something a little more than just, yes, I am.
Yes, I am, sir. We are currently piloting 3 separate departments, land and water conservation, child support, and public health nursing. We are piloting 3 departments to see if we can do what you described. And that is just one piece of the overall puzzle. Because I think, in certain instances, we're going to be able to maybe redefine the workspace. I'll leave it at that. I won't say work from home or work from your car or work from Starbucks. I won't say that, but I'll say redefine the traditional work environment. We are in the process of trying to do that with 3 departments that we think will demonstrate whether or not this can be done. Because if it can't be done with the 3 departments that I've identified, then it can't be done. Because these are 3 what I will say, low-hanging fruit type of departments where success can be demonstrated quickly and factually. And so, yes, we are looking at that, but that's just one piece of the big space puzzle of St. Croix County. We need to look at all departments and how they interact with the public and how they interact with other departments, and determine whether or not they're in the right, in the space that we have defined for them, is it right? Before we break ground and start laying bricks for any sort of building addition, I'm with you that we need to make sure we've done our own homework and looked internally to see what can we do differently. And then and only then will I come to the board and say, we have done all that we can do to redefine our traditional workspace, and this is what we need. We're not there yet, by any means. But I will not come to this board with a fancy building project without doing our homework first. And that's what we're doing.
Supervisor Malik.
My next question has to do with the use of energy savings and alternate energy sources. I'd like to hear, because I know that Mr. Tobin has been trying to do things, I'd like to hear some from you about whether you think he will actually be able to achieve some significant energy savings, and that's kind of the first energy question. The second energy question is about alternate or reduced cost sources of energy. As before you came, we had to do some replacement work on our boilers, and we investigated the possibility of extracting thermal energy from the ground, and it looked quite promising at a stage there, until we discovered that the cost of the diesel fuel for drilling thermal energy, geothermal energy wells made it infeasible at that point of time due to, as I say, the cost of petroleum at that point. So we moved ahead and replaced our boilers with more efficient but not a giant leap forward type of efficiency. So can you tell us something about energy savings and the exploration of alternate energy, be it geothermal or solar electric?
Wow. Art Tobin is not in the house. I believe he's working on our energy project as we speak. I know that Art has assembled a group of energy experts. I sat through one meeting, and the stuff that they were talking about was over my head in terms of what they're trying to do to lower energy costs at St. Croix County. And Art has taken this on with a passion. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to dodge around your question. I know that he has built in every possible dollar of energy savings in this budget. I can't speak specifically as to geothermal or some of the other stuff that you had mentioned, Buck, but we're doing as much as we can. I know he has got some people looking at this with him, some industry experts from outside the St. Croix County family to advise him on this. And as I said, he takes this on quite seriously, and we are trying to generate energy savings.
Perhaps a future report?
I think a future report in detail will be helpful.
Supervisor Stoffer.
I'll comment on two things that Buck has mentioned. One, office space. Where I work, there are 350 or probably 400 by now employees, and everyone up to middle management gets a 6x8 cube, 48 square feet, which is about half of what I've heard of the standard is for the county. So I would suggest looking into reducing the size that each person takes. The other thing I wanted to mention is as far as energy usage, looking at more efficient computers as we replace them. One option is to get a thing called a net top, which is like a small computer. It uses much less electricity, and they're about so big, so thick, much smaller space. They use less space on your desktop and cheaper. I was looking through the budget, and it looks like desktop replacements are budgeted at about $1,000. And when I look on websites, it looks like you can get something for $300 to $500 that should be quite capable for our needs for a standard desktop. And I think that budgeting $1,000 for a computer is excessive. Now, not a big deal when you look at one line item, but I assume if you look through the budget, there's quite a few of those and they add up. So with those two comments, I have one further question about the nursing home. In the past, there has been levy carryover. And I wonder if there is any known levy carryover and what that amount would be.
Michelle?
Attached to the resolution, on the third page is a surplus applied section. And the nursing home had $202,893 at the end of 2010, which was applied to this budget. That would have been unspent levy from 2010.
Supervisors, any additional comment? Supervisor Stauffer.
I have one general comment. You look at the overall number, excuse me, and the levy amount is about the same, goes up a little bit. And that has been described as really hard to get within that number. Well, it's a larger percent of the pie. We are increasing the mill rate about 5%. And so we are saying that we are having a hard time staying with the same amount of levy dollars when everyone else has to cut back as you look at foreclosures and people losing their job. And so we are saying that the best we can do is to keep the same amount of money and therefore take a bigger percentage of the pie. And I think we should be looking at reducing our portion of the pie, not increasing it.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. Would now be a time for motions to amend?
We have a main motion on the floor. A motion to amend would be a germane motion.
Okay. Well, then I'll start off with making a motion to amend this levy budget by reducing the $130,109 from the nursing home. And those dollars will then go to reducing the overall levy.
Is there a second to the motion to amend? Are you seconding? Second from Supervisor Stauffer. Motion from Supervisor Hermsen, second from Supervisor Stauffer to remove the levy dollars from the nursing home. Discussion on the amendment. Supervisor Wentz.
I think it's unfortunate when supervisors jump on something right away without allowing the people who, through no fault of their own, have this brought forth $130,000. As Pat explained to you, the nursing home and its employees are working very hard to change that amount. And without even giving us a chance is not a very nice thing to do, especially in light of all the sacrifices that our employees have made to bring us to this point in time. Also, you know, way back when we decided to have our goal setting and we did the 2015 was the time we were going to get off the levy. and we've worked very hard. This is a 2012 budget, so we have really come a long way. And at this point, to take away that $130,000, through no fault of our own, it got put there. I think it's wrong. Nobody blinked an eye when we've done other things here in the county. Nobody thought anything about it, and I don't understand why it's always the nursing home that is the target. I can't figure that out. We have other things that we spend money on. We have people working very, very hard to make sure that we don't overspend or take away money that should be used someplace else. I think you have to give these people in the nursing home a chance. $130,000 is not a lot of money in light of all the other money that we spend here in the county.
Additional discussion on the amendment. Supervisor Malik.
I agree in principle with Supervisor Wentz. It seems to me that this is particularly the case in that the cuts were just recently announced, and this was not a matter that could be foreseen and dealt with at an earlier point. That makes it seem especially unfair to impose a cut at this point. I would commend to the Health and Human Services Board that they look once again at the rates charged for private pay. I can't remember when the last increase was. It doesn't seem like it was long ago, but that's about the only. Okay, well then I guess you should schedule another increase to match whatever is appropriate, whatever is justified at that time, to go into effect as early as it is justified. But I'm going to vote against the amendment.
Additional discussion, I'll come back to you if there's no additional discussion. Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you, Board Chair. Ordinarily, I'd be one who would speak up in support of this kind of amendment, but having reflected on what Supervisor Wentz and Supervisor Malik have had to say, and having watched this budget develop for quite a number of weeks now, I too am not able to support this amendment because the nursing home has not known for very long that the Medicare cuts they would experience were coming down the pike. So to give them another year, and I assume that we all remember that we are to look at the nursing home before next August, to give them another year to have a chance to get their budget in line and come to us next year without any kind of levy dollar increase, I will not be able to support the amendment to the budget.
Any additional discussion? Supervisor Stauffer.
I commend the nursing home for planning to have a zero levy budget, and I understand that this coming at the last minute, $150,000 increase or decrease in their funding is very hard, and it's not easy to ask people once they've had a hit to take another hit. But once again, I believe that our citizens have been taking that, and while it's hard, we need to look at cutting in a lot of areas.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. I'd like to, I guess I'll respond to Supervisor Wentz's position in that to say it's unfair to the nursing home employees, really I look at that saying, well, it's just as unfair to the other county nursing home residents of the nursing homes we have in the county on the private side. And I'm sure those people are taking the cuts just as well as what's going on at the county level. But the part that everybody seems to forget is that the private homes are required to make a margin well enough to put up an additional capital expenditure to either expand or to keep that home running. But apparently at the St. Croix County home, we don't have that requirement. The position, we've just heard that we're going to carry forward an additional $250,000 plus the $130,000 that we are giving them right now. I've heard rumors that there's probably a likelihood there'll be deeper cuts coming. So really, this 130,000 is just the edge. We know we need to do something with that nursing home, and this board's rather divided on the direction to take. But we can't continue to subsidize a private business, I guess is the way the things that we compete with in private business, where those people have to basically buck up and make ends meet, whereas apparently our nursing home doesn't. So when we look at it, we mark it as a decrease of 64% in funding. We've made choices. Apparently, the suggestion from our county administrator is that the choices are this. We can have a 9% increase in highway. We can give a 2.25% increase in parks. People, I don't know if people realize, there's $439,000 of levy dollars that are going towards just recreation. And what's been brought forth from our parks director, we found, was close to 70% of those people enjoying that recreation don't even live in the county. So we don't seem to have a big problem with spending levy dollars. And if we're going to turn around, you want to come down through this point of giving up 130,000, I'd suggest you maybe look at taking dollars from other departments. But we didn't make that choice. We have said all along here with the resolution on asking for the employees from the nursing home to come in line with the rest of nursing homes in the county. We have a Chapter 46 I keep bringing up that says we as a county are to use the cheaper resources that we can, but we seem to ignore that. So I would tend to disagree with that. We're being unfair to those employees up at the nursing home. We've been more than generous, and the time is now to start getting that back in line. That's my comment.
Any additional discussion on the amendment that's in front of us? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. This is an amendment to reduce the line item of levy dollars for the nursing home in the 2012 budget. This is on the motion by Supervisor Hermsen, second by Supervisor Stauffer. Proceed to vote on the amendment. And the amendment fails 14-2. Additional discussion. Supervisor Stauffer.
I have an amendment. I'm not sure of the correct procedure here, so please correct me if I do this incorrectly. But I move that the total levy amount be reduced such that the mill rate stays constant, and the part I'm unsure about is the best way to stipulate how those cuts are made. So whether it would be appropriate for county administrator to make those decisions, the admin committee to make those decisions, or those decisions come back to the county board.
Supervisor, I must say this carefully. I think I need to rule your motion out of order. The reason being there is no possible way that we can quantify your motion for any decision based on data points by this board today. I stand subject to being overruled, but I don't see any way to quantify your motion, and if we can't, I think it's out of order.
So you're saying I'd have to specify where those cuts are coming from?
I don't see any other way to have a germane motion.
Okay.
And I mean you, no disrespect. I just, well, we'll leave it at that. Any other discussion? Seeing none, supervisors, then the motion that is in front of us is now the original main motion. We've had one amendment on which we voted, and that amendment failed, so we're back to the original motion. That motion is the resolution that's in front of you and the adoption of the resolution for the 2012 budget and approving the other expenses. This is presented on a motion by Supervisor Norton Baumann with a second from Supervisor Wentz. You now have to put your second back in. Are you ready? And we will now proceed to vote on the resolution adopting the 2012 budget and the other expenses. Proceed to vote. I'm sorry? And the resolution is adopted on a vote of 14-2. At this point, supervisors, we have passed the anticipated break time of 10 o'clock, so we will take a break in just a moment or two. As I indicated immediately preceding the break, I wanted to have us have an opportunity to recognize a departing employee, and at this point I would ask Dave Fredrozzi to please come forward for potentially some accolades. Once you retire, Dave, I think people only have good things to say about you, so if you'd come forward, please. I think most of you know that Dave has submitted his resignation as the department chair for the Planning and Zoning Department. Dave is a longtime valued employee of St. Croix County. We go back a lot of years. I guess that means that you've been here a while and I've been on the board a while, but I have respected the leadership that he has displayed in that department. I have respected the relationships that he's built not only with supervisors but with staff. And Dave, we are going to miss you. So I would be remiss if I didn't point out that on Friday of this week, I believe, Friday afternoon from 2 to 4, there will be an opportunity for a little more of an expansive time with Dave. So if your schedule is available, either members of the public, employees, or supervisors, stop into this location Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. But with that, Dave, any remarks that you want to make? The microphone is yours, and then we'll have a break and people can slap you on the back. Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I have to apologize. Daryl gave me a lot of warning about this morning, and I intended to be prepared. And I had about a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation with a detailed historical introspective into my many accomplishments here at St. Croix County. But it was late last night when I was finishing it. I was very tired, and instead of hitting the save button, I hit delete. So my comments this morning will have to be much more brief than I had planned. The only thing I really need to say this morning is to thank all of you, the county board, and your predecessors for allowing me the opportunity to serve you and work with you, to serve the people and communities of St. Croix County for almost 22 years. It's been a very rewarding experience. And I'm very proud and humbled by the things that we have accomplished together and the improvements that we have made in planning and zoning and land information and waste management. But it's not about me, it's about us, because it takes a lot of people to get things done and to make important changes within county government and any organization. I have been blessed to have a wonderful staff, very dedicated people over the years, committed to what they do, committed to county service, committed to the people that we all serve. I've had tremendous support and cooperation from a multitude of departments here in the county. Most of those department heads are here this morning, and I appreciate all the support and cooperation I've had from them over the years, and my staff does as well. A multitude of local officials. I'm pretty sure I've been in every town hall in the county more than once, and most of the village and city halls, and we've done good work by partnering with those local officials and their staffs to get some good community development done throughout St. Croix County. I've had great work with a number of committees, both our standing committees and a number of special committees over the years. The Board of Adjustment, and certainly all of you on the full county board. I guess that comes up to something like 11 terms. And the faces have certainly changed over the years, but the dedication and the concern and caring about St. Croix County and its citizens and communities has always been a constant in this room. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work with you and for you. And as to that retirement word, it's been a concept that I've struggled with for a long time, and I'm still struggling with it. So my retirement is going to be for a week, as many of you know. After that week, I will take on a new opportunity as the executive director of the Kinnickinnic River Land Trust. The Land Trust has a mission of working with the community to protect the natural resources and scenic beauty of the Kinnickinnic River watershed. And as most of you who have worked with me and know, things like community, natural resources, scenic beauty, and the Kinnickinnic River as one of many fine rivers in our area strike a passionate chord. And so while my heart has a lot of passion left and my tank has a little bit of fuel in it, after my 1-week retirement, I'm excited to take on that new opportunity, work with the Land Trust, a new board, in pursuing their objectives of a cool, clean, and clear Kinney River. So this isn't farewell. I'm not changing teams, really. I'm just kind of getting a new position with a new number. My geography will be a little smaller. And my issues will be a little more focused, but nonetheless, I'll be working with you, and instead of an employee, look forward to being your partner. So thank you for all of the support that I've received from the board from over the years and everyone else in the room, and it's been a great ride. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave, and we wish you well. Supervisors, we will stand informal until 11 o'clock. Supervisors will come to order again. Agenda item number 3 is a resolution adopting the St. Croix County Emergency Operations Plan and Emergency Management Program. This resolution comes to us from the Public Protection Committee. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion from Chair Larson, second from Supervisor Hermsen. Discussion. I'm assuming all of you have read the approximately 342-page attachment. A lot of work has gone into this. I'm not meaning to be cavalier at all. This is an important document. A lot of work has gone into it, and I hope you have familiarized yourself with it. Supervisor Lucky.
Well, I won't claim to have read every page, but I did thumb through it, and I noticed that some of the information is out of date, and so it seemed as though we're approving something that's already outdated, and I wondered you know, what are the rules governing that as far as the state or whatever entity we're satisfying with the passage of this?
Chair is unclear who to refer the question to, so I'm going to bounce it to Committee Chair Larson, who is deferring it to Casey Swetlick.
That's an excellent question. It was also observed by our parent committee, Public Protection. This is what we call a breathing and living document. This is something that every year we have a charge from the state in order to qualify for our grant funding that we go through and renew. This year just happens to be a major overhaul of this document. And the minute we update it, there's some component of it that will be out of date, just simply because of turnover. We have a lot of references to the community. So there will be a belief that there is a component of this that is out of date that will be addressed at the next time we update this, which will be annually. This also included a large component of the resolution that you'll be looking at next, and that is to look at how the change in ordinance language is addressed. So that's why you have it before you. We don't anticipate bringing it before you every time we change one or two items in it. It's just a living, breathing document.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Lucky? Any additional conversation or discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, Supervisors, we are prepared to vote. This is the resolution adopting the St. Croix County Emergency Operations Plan and Emergency Management Program. This comes on a motion by Supervisor Larson, second by Supervisor Hermsen, and proceed to vote. The resolution is adopted unanimously. Agenda item number 4 is an ordinance repealing an ordinance, and this now comes as a result of our adoption of the Emergency Operations Plan. This ordinance repealing ordinance number 315-93, which was adopted back in 1993, comes to us from the Public Protection Committee as well. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion from Chair Larson and second from Supervisor Hermsen. Discussion. I suspect there is no discussion on this because now this cleans up our process. Supervisors, proceed to vote on the ordinance repealing ordinance number 315(93). Motion Larson, second Hermsen. Proceed to vote. And the resolution is adopted unanimously. Agenda item number 5 is a resolution approving an application for a 2012 County Conservation Aids Grant. This resolution comes to us from the Community Development Committee. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion from Committee Chair Hermsen, second from Bill Peavy. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. This is a resolution approving the application for a 2012 Conservation AIDS Grant. Motion Hermsen, second Peavy. Proceed to vote. And that is approved unanimously. Agenda item number 6 is a resolution approving the employee grievance system. This is somewhat lengthy. This has been distributed for your prior review. I think Most people have had a chance to review this. This has been discussed in committee. This comes to us from Administration Committee, and Chair will entertain a motion from Supervisor Norton Bauman, Committee Chair, with second from Supervisor Seacard. Discussion, Supervisors. Seeing no discussion, I assume you're ready to vote. This is the resolution approving our employee grievance system. This comes to us from the Administration Committee on a motion by Supervisor Norton Bauman, second by Supervisor Seacard. Proceed to vote. And that is approved unanimously. Supervisors, at the risk of stating the obvious, we are now proceeding quite expeditiously with a minimum of back and forth and discussion through these resolutions, and I anticipate agenda item number 7 would be no different. Undoubtedly, this will also be an easy item to deal with, so we will proceed to agenda item number 7. This is a resolution prohibiting firearms in the Health and Human Services Building. This resolution comes to us from the Health and Human Services Committee, and Chair would entertain a motion. Motion from Supervisor Wentz, and we have a second from Supervisor Larson. At this point, before we get into any board discussion, we have had requests from members of the audience to address the board per our bylaws and per the ruling of the chair made earlier. We do have 4 speakers that have asked to address the board. By reasons of orderly process, there are 2 affirmative speakers, a male and a female, 2 negative speakers, a male and a female, and by random lot and the flipping of a quarter generously donated and returned to Supervisor Hurchin earlier, we determined simply that the order of speaker would start with the affirmative speakers. So we do have 2 on the affirmative side, 2 on the negative side, and as my mom always taught me, you always honor ladies. So we will start with the ladies first, and we will alternate the order. So we will start with an affirmative speaker, then we will go to a negative speaker, then an affirmative speaker, then a negative speaker. So that's about as random as we can make it, I believe, and so we're trying to be as fair as possible. So we will start with Annette Olson. And I have Annette, if you'd make your way forward to the podium. I had earlier asked Supervisor Seacard. Yes. I have my affirmative and negative mixed up, but I did write on here, this is the pile that we would start with. Right. So even though I had which side you're going to be on, the process that I've got is still correct. We're starting with this pile. Be informed that this is a person speaking in the negative with respect to this resolution. And my apologies for mischaracterizing that, Annette. I had earlier asked Supervisor Seacard to time, so each speaker, as you begin, we're not going to charge your time coming forward. As you begin, Ryan will begin to time. When he raises his hand, if you're still speaking, I will be at that point required to tap the gavel and your presentation is done. So with that, you have 3 minutes and you are speaking in opposition.
Okay. Yes, I am opposing the resolution that you are preparing to vote on. My name is Annette Olson and I live in Glenwood City, Wisconsin. I'm a mother and a certified NRA trainer. I'm a grandmother, I'm a wife, I'm a Tea Party leader. Everybody knows most of that about me. The Second Amendment was written in the United States Constitution, and it is very simple and straightforward. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Wisconsin State Constitution, Article 1, Section 25, says the people have the right to keep and bear arms for security, defense, hunting, recreation, or any other lawful purpose. There's no mention of where, when, or how to keep those. It's just all-inclusive. Now, the right to self-defense is given to us by God, and no man should take that away. Wisconsin's Act 35, which is the Personal Protection Act, became effective today. It was enacted for law-abiding citizens, not for the criminals. It was for the law-abiding citizens to be able to carry concealed for self-defense. It was not enacted to further restrict the laws or the rights of law-abiding citizens or to provide more opportunities for criminals. While it is true that Act 35 allows you to post your buildings, it is not created so that law-abiding citizens' rights will continue to be infringed upon. If you post the county buildings, you will have to make sure that everyone's safety is ensured and guaranteed. That will be your responsibility. How will you do that? You will need to decide. You cannot just post a sign in a building because the criminal will walk through the sign. I will guarantee that. And to dramatize that, Representative Evan Wynn was meeting in an assembly room in the Capitol a few weeks ago. On the door outside the Assembly Committee room was a sign that said, "No signs permitted beyond this point." When he entered the room, there was a room full of signs. So people that want to disrupt will disrupt, okay? It will happen. Law-abiding citizens will not disrupt. The fear factor is what a lot of you are going by. This is not an emotional decision. This is a decision that must be weighed by the facts. And the facts say that posting a building makes people feel safe. In reality, they are less safe because only the law-abiding citizens will leave their protection outside the doors. Criminals will know that the buildings are all safe.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
Going to the other side, and again, we will start with the lady that will be speaking in favor of the resolution. I'll invite Katie Thermos forward.
Is it on? Yep. Okay. Hi, good morning. As you consider today the resolution banning firearms in New Richmond, I'd like to address a couple of points I've heard at the various committee meetings where this item has already been discussed. First, the immunity clause contained in the concealed carry law. As discussed at committee meetings, immunity from liability is provided to the owner of property from a decision to allow carrying of concealed weapons by citizens or employees in their business should someone get injured or killed. However, the Attorney General warns that there may be circumstances where liability does exist. For example, OSHA mandates that all employers have a general duty to provide their employees with a workplace free from recognized hazards likely to cause death or serious physical harm. That duty is not absolved by Wisconsin's concealed carry law. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 48% of all non-fatal injuries from occupational assaults and violent acts occurred in the fields of healthcare and social services, precisely the services provided at our New Richmond campus. According to OSHA, healthcare and social service workers face an increased risk of work-related assaults stemming from several factors. The first risk factor they list, the prevalence of handguns and other weapons. Should this board allow weapons inside the New Richmond buildings, a known workplace hazard given the types of services provided and the high stress levels of the clients they serve, the immunity offered under the concealed carry legislation will provide little to no cover for the county's liability. Is this board really willing to risk another lawsuit at the taxpayer's expense? This is just one example for your consideration. I would point out that the resolution before you only bans firearms. It's my understanding that a separate ordinance would need to be passed to ban the other types of weapons allowed under concealed carry: stun guns, certain knives, and billy clubs. I have with me a petition signed by 205 brave county employees asking this board to ban weapons inside all buildings housing county operations within St. Croix County. We took care in the language we used in the petition after hearing concerns raised by Annette Olson to the Public Protection Committee, who stated that broad language banning weapons inside county buildings would prevent people from carrying concealed weapons inside, say, the bathrooms at county parks. That's a separate decision for this board to make. Employees are simply asking that you provide them with a safer and more secure workplace by banning weapons. I'd remind this board that weapons have been banned here for decades, so continuing the ban would be no change from the policies of the past. I'd also like to address another point I've heard mentioned at committee meetings, that being that only law-abiding citizens will take the necessary steps to legally certify for concealed carry. The standard under the concealed carry law is that you can be certified as long as you haven't been convicted of a felony.
Your 3 minutes are
So
up.
close.
Thank you. Going to the other side of the issue then, I would invite Tom Irwin, and Tom will be speaking in opposition to the resolution.
Thank you. The race is on. My name is Tom Irwin. I'm in District 16, City of Hudson. And after attending this meeting, which is 3 within about 1 month, it brought back memories of a book I had written some time ago, written by Lieutenant Dave Grossman, former Army Ranger, paratrooper, and a psychology professor at West Point. He uses the analogy of sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves to explain the human population. Now, the wolves are the criminals, so the guys who don't obey the signs, the laws. The sheepdogs are the people who are willing to step forward, who will put their lives on the line to protect the sheep. Both of those are a small percentage. The sheep, by percentage, are about 80% of the population. And some of the sheep can transition to become sheepdogs if they would like to. And he stresses that some are not capable. And through their studies, even soldiers on the battlefield, having an enemy approach them, knowing that he's going to kill them, have been unable to pull the trigger. Now, in the last meeting, I sat in the back, and I got to tell you that I listened to a lot of comments of some of our government employees and those accompanying them ridicule and belittle those who are willing to defend themselves. However, I want to make clear that there's nothing wrong with having a mindset to defend yourself. Nothing. We don't even care if criminals carry guns because we know that they will carry guns no matter what the law. As long as you and I can carry guns to balance that equation. It is when restrictions pass, such as this resolution today, that restrict law-abiding citizens from carrying weapons, that the balance of the power shifts into the hands of criminals. Supervisors and law enforcement officials who vote against the right of the law-abiding to carry a gun or worse initiate legislation or resolutions to prevent the law-abiding from owning and carrying guns are violating the oath they swore to uphold, the Constitution, and are deliberately shifting the balance of power directly into the hands of the criminal. Make no mistake about this, this is a litmus test for who you can trust in public office and law enforcement. The government employees have asked for protection. I'd contrast this to what our legislators went through in Madison this spring. Some of our locals who have received a lot of threats for violence, even death. And I don't hear them crying out, "Protect me, protect me." On the previous discussions about these protections, I ask you, what makes our government employees so much more privileged than the general citizens so that we should force taxpayers to pay for additional protection that they are capable of providing for themselves? Additionally, when you study mass shootings, they almost always occur in the gun-free zones. We have no problem with the 80% who either refuse or are not capable of defending themselves. We do have a problem when you debar those of us who have a mindset to defend ourselves. Our founding fathers warned that when you give up liberty for safety, you end up with neither.
Tom, your time is
For
up.
these reasons, we ask you to not support it. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Tom. And our final speaker, speaking in favor of the passage of the resolution, is Dan Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Superintendents, ladies and gentlemen. What's before you is a motion not to approve the Second Amendment. What's before you is a motion to make our Health and Human Services facility a safe facility. What's before you is a motion to honor what has been done on the administration level in the state of Wisconsin. The governor, through Mike Hughes, the Secretary of the Administration Department, has issued a memo, and this goes to all state employees. I hope that you've seen this. This is the memo outlining the use of, or the implementation of the concealed carry policy, and I'll read the section that talks about the exceptions. There are 3 areas where concealed carry will be prohibited. First, where the state and federal statutes prohibit carrying concealed in certain types of facilities, such as police stations, courts, schools, and other areas. Second, where there is a significant risk that the general population within or served by a facility could overcome a person carrying concealed, such facilities will be prohibited from concealed carry. Probation and parole offices, mental health institutions, and other similar facilities meet these criteria. Third, we will prohibit concealed carry in areas where the inadvertent discharge of a weapon could create an explosion or chemical reaction. And as you know, in a place like a nursing home, there's a lot of O2, oxygen, in use. Oxygen in a tank is a very explosive gas, and a inadvertent discharge of a weapon could in fact cause that kind of an explosion. That would be the first thing that I have to say, is that in keeping with what Governor Walker wants, this would be kind of a problem. Also, when I met with the administration committee 2 weeks ago, I was operating under the assumption that most people would feel that this would be the right thing to do. I was a little bit wrong, because statistically just about all people, I posted myself outside of the HHS building for 4 business days last week, and I collected signatures on this petition. I collected 435 signatures representing every single one of your supervisory districts. This is every person, nearly every person that went inside of that building last week. These are the people who use the building. These are the people who go to visit loved ones who live there. These are the people who work there. These are people who manage the CIP. These are law enforcement officers, including sheriff's deputies and people who are law enforcement officers in New Richmond. These are your constituents, want you to put this amendment in place and make it a safe facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need this for the record? Sure. Thank you. It goes back to Kim Dupree when you finish. Okay. Thank you.
Supervisors, you are aware that there have been a number of emails that have been forwarded to the county board. Most of them were simply addressed supervisors. Those emails have been forwarded to most of us by Cindy. There also is the written record.
I forwarded them to you and Pat.
I stand corrected. They were forwarded to the administrator and to me. I've read all of them. I apologize. I thought they were forwarded to everybody. But we do have the written record here. Many of them are quite similar in language, but they do have individual signatures on them. So I would indicate that people have taken the time to send them. And there are emails on both sides of the issue. There also is a request from Supervisor Marzoff, who is not here. A couple of the emails that he received, he's requesting that they be read into the record. I mean him no disrespect, but I don't think there is a need to do that. They were emails in support of the resolution. I would make that record clear. I just don't think it's necessary to read them into the record unless someone thinks they should be. I want to be respectful to him. I'm acknowledging that they're here, as are a number of others. Anyone that wants to read the written testimony, and this will be maintained as part of our public record, it is here. So with that, supervisors, we will entertain any discussion, comments, questions, observations on the resolution that's in front of us. Supervisor Wentz.
Supervisors, you'll notice that the Health and Human Services Board voted unanimously to support this resolution. And one of those reasons, I think, or the biggest reason, is that we want our employees to be safe. As was mentioned, many of the departments that we have at Health and Human Services are ones that deal with mental health issues. They deal with issues of family custody of children. They deal also with economic support. And some of these issues can be very frustrating to the individuals involved, and I think we have a real issue when our employees do not feel safe. I think also that we need to worry about not one's ability to carry a gun. All we're asking is you can have your gun wherever you want it, just don't bring it in to the Health and Human Services building during business hours or any other time. We want our employees to feel safe. We want the people that are residents of our nursing home to be safe. We're not saying you can't own a gun or have a gun, but just do not bring it into our facilities. Let our employees do their job and let them do it in a safe environment where they can be the most productive.
Supervisor Stoffer.
I was wondering if someone can clarify what Health and Human Services Campus in Richmond exactly means. In previous discussions, I've always interpreted Health and Human Services building as being the old part that we want to get rid of, and so I was wondering if someone could clarify what exactly that language covers.
I'm not for certain, but I think it also includes the buildings that house our St. Croix Industries. We consider that part of Health and Human Services, although they operate independently of Health and Human Services. I think the nursing home is also considered to be part of the Health and Human Services campus because it is attached to the building. And at one time, we had a little house that was off to one side of the campus, and we used that as part of our, as a day area for our St. Croix Industries. That we don't use that any longer. But I do think that those two areas that I mentioned, or three areas, the nursing home, the Health and Human Services building, and St. Croix Industries would be considered the campus.
That's correct. Pardon?
Maintenance buildings? Just everything?
Yes.
Well, everything that's there would be.
Right.
Okay.
Any additional discussion, Supervisor? Supervisor Stoffer.
It's been asked that we pass this in order to increase the safety, and I was wondering if anyone, maybe I could put the sheriff on the spot, would like to comment about the level of safety that just posting a building provides. I know we had discussions about this in public protection, and it seemed to be, it was my impression that the level of safety that posting a building provides is basically insignificant. If you want to actually increase the safety, it would require going a few steps further and doing like metal detectors and stuff like that. So if I could put the sheriff on the spot as a law enforcement official to comment on how safety will be affected by posting the building.
Well, you can if he's willing to comment, so I will inquire. John, do you wish to comment on the question that is pondered? The relative degree of safety of posting a building? Please come forward and use the microphone for the audio feed.
In answer to the question, I'll simply repeat what I stated at the Public Protection Committee meeting when I was asked this very same question. The perception will be that it's a safer environment. The reality is, in order to have a safe environment, you'll need checkpoints and screening.
Does that respond to your question, James? Supervisor Malik.
This building has signs indicating that people are subject to search for weapons, and it's had that kind of a sign for years. Do all the buildings at the Richmond campus have similar signs? Do any of the buildings at New Richmond have similar signs that say that people are subject to search?
I would submit to you that the new law prohibits random search on any of the campuses except for this one, which is excluded because it's going to be in the courthouse. any law enforcement officer would have to have probable cause in order to stop that first individual. And I believe that was carried because of legislation.
Is that, if I may follow up, is that intended to say that even if this is passed, your personnel will not have the authority to search without having independent probable cause?
I think the restriction, if the board passes this, makes the campus an area that is clearly prohibited, and therefore that triggers the probable cause if the officer, sees that weapon under a coat or a bulge that could be a weapon. Now that triggers the officer who can act. Absent that, you're correct, the officer cannot act.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. The problem that bothers me with this whole thing is at what lengths are we going to go to prevent or to inhibit people's right? We seem to think that, we've heard the petitions and the requests from the employees. I guess what bothers me is, why do these county employees feel they're entitled to more protection than the average person out on the public street or who owns a private business? Has there been a problem? No. And I think John just got done making the point. We aren't making the buildings any safer. Or if anything, we're giving people a false hope. So I like to look at this as if a person that's gone through the training, a person that's took on the responsibility and is willing to render aid if needed, why would we want to inhibit that? And I'm going to give a prime example to this. And that's just the mindset that seems to be coming out of this is, somehow this is coming down to, we're stating in any situation in the public who's allowed to render aid. And I guess I'm going to give the analogy, I guess, if you're trained in CPR, oh no, you don't render aid to that person if they happen to tip over with a heart attack. You call 911 and let somebody else come and do it. If you're broke down along the road, don't stop and help those people, even though it's 30 below zero. Call 911. Somebody will come and help you. That's fine if you want to take that position. I'd feel a little uncomfortable doing that if it's my loved one that happens to be in the position. And now anybody coming by to try to render aid is basically told, the government has said I shouldn't do that because I'm not allowed. But the part that gets really annoying with this is the people that have gone through the training, as I've said, and they want to try to protect themselves. Now you're saying they can't even protect themselves. The law makes it rather clear here that they've said we'll keep it out of courtrooms, we'll keep them out of jails. To me, jails make it's perfect logic. Courtrooms, however, all of a sudden only certain people are allowed to carry, and we allow a judge to carry concealed in a courtroom. And I don't believe a judge is any more upstanding than any other upstanding citizen. But where does this resolution stop? If we're going to do this, of all the work that's gone into Act 35 to allow people to protect themselves, and you look at the analogy of how is it 48 other states have found this to not be a problem, I want to know where the resolution stops. If we're going to say it's this building or the building up in New Richmond, are we going to say it's just inside the doors? Are we going to include the parking lot? And if that's the case, are we going to go out into the street? So now you're not allowed to carry on a public street? We just seem to try to avoid and to eliminate the people that have got the right. They've gone through the hoops. They've jumped through everything they can to be allowed to carry. I had to laugh here because I too today I put on a holster just to cover underneath this, just to show that what it would be like to carry concealed. Now, I didn't fool anybody apparently because my coat was a little too tight and this thing doesn't fit right, but the whole analogy is this. You want to be carrying concealed. You want to be able to render aid in the event that somebody does come in and start shooting. You want to be able to help out. You want to be able to protect yourself. We seem to think that you step in this building here and you're safe. You're not safe. So unless people are going to come through the door, hang that sign on them, say no guns allowed here, and I hope that sign is bulletproof, because when the day comes that somebody does come through that door and start shooting, that sign ain't going to help you. So we're not fooling anybody here, and I suggest we don't pass this resolution.
Supervisor Schrank.
Thank you. I have problems with this carrying and concealed weapon because it's my right to carry and concealed. And the more restrictions we put on my rights, the less I'm going to have. So I guess I'm in favor of carrying concealed myself.
Supervisor Wentz.
I think maybe we're confusing a couple of things here. We're not saying that you can't carry and conceal. We're just asking you not to carry and conceal in certain buildings. As far as your right to carry and conceal, this ordinance has nothing to do with that. We don't care where you carry it. Just do not carry it in the area we're asking you not to. And we're asking you that for a very specific reason, because of the type of business that's going on in there. And I think that one of the supervisors said, well, why do these people think they're any better than anybody else? I don't think they think they're any better than anybody else, or that their welfare is more important than anyone else. But you have to realize that they're a captive audience. They're working in an area where there's only one way in and one way out. They are captive. They're not like John Q. Public on the street that has many options of where to go if somebody starts shooting. They do not have a place. And I would encourage you to vote for this. Give them that feeling, even if it's a perception. If that perception makes them feel safer at their jobs, I think it's worthwhile for us to do this. We're not infringing on anybody's right to conceal and carry. They can do that wherever they want to, just not in the particular areas where we're conducting business at Health and Human Services.
Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you, Board Chair. I move to amend this resolution to include all of the buildings in St. Croix County that we own. Excuse me. All of the county-owned buildings in St. Croix County. Wow. Oh, please. I'll second that.
That would, all right. I was going to indicate this would be a germane motion. It is germane to the resolution. We now have a motion in front of us on a motion from Supervisor Norton Baumann and a second by Supervisor Wentz to amend. And Supervisor, for purposes of clarity, where are you seeking those changes? I can make some assumptions, but it's your motion.
That all of the county-owned buildings be added to that paragraph on line 61.
Probably you mean line 62?
Yes. Line 55.
And the intent of your motion, not trying to put words in your mouth, the intent of your motion is to, in those lines, strike the words Health and Human Services Campus in New Richmond and replace that with all county-owned buildings? Is that your understanding?
Yes.
We now have an amendment in front of us, and discussion now is limited to the amendment. Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you, Board Chair. I believe that if we're going to pass this resolution, we ought to keep it simple for the public, so the public knows that all county buildings are off limits for concealed carry firearms. That's the purpose of my amendment to the resolution. I'd also like to state, if I could at this point, and if it's not germane, please rule me out of order. But it's my understanding that this building lies within, this particular building and parking lot lies within 1,000 feet of a school. According to my understanding, and I've got the statute in front of me, no guns can be allowed within 1,000 feet of any school grounds. So consequently, this building is automatically off limits.
That was part of a federal law, wasn't it? I think that was part of a federal law.
It's a federal statute, federal law.
Yeah. Supervisor Stauffer.
I believe that is correct. If you do not have a license, the law allows you to open carry, and if you are prohibited within, okay, I'll look.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. Well, then, I guess, John, I think you better plan on putting all your guns out in the car and get it out 1,000 feet out. And I would probably suggest we're going to tell the judges they can no longer carry in the building then, since they're in violation of federal law.
Supervisor Lucky.
If we're going to insert those words into line 61 or whatever it is, I think then that there are some other changes in language that would need to be made to this resolution. It doesn't seem right to, if this would pass, to publish a resolution that implies from the title that it only pertains to the Health and Human Services, when in fact, in the very last line, it suddenly switches to everything. So I think it needs more work.
Your point is correct, and I think for purposes of this amendment, should it be approved, amending the main motion, we will need to clarify that the resolution then that we would be considering applies to all county-owned buildings, including, as you correctly point out, Supervisor Lucky, in the title of the resolution. Any additional discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. We are voting on the amendment only, and the amendment would strike the language that refers to the Health and Human Services campus in New Richmond and would instead replace that language with all county-owned buildings. You're voting on the amendment only. This is on a motion from Supervisor Norton Bauman and seconded by Supervisor Wentz. And the amendment does pass on a vote of 9-7. We now have in front of us an amended resolution, and the amended resolution in front of us would prohibit firearms in county-owned buildings. Discussion on the amended resolution. Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. The only thing I'm going to ask here is, all right, people, where are we making this stop? I guess we've now gone from the building to the parking lot, and the only thing left is the street. It goes completely against what Act 35 was assigned to do and to entitle private citizens to protect themselves. And to come back to Supervisor Wentz's comment, they have turned around, and in this resolution, you have classed this as a Class B felony. If I remember that right. That's no small, I'm sorry, Class B forfeiture, right, $1,000. That's no small,
That's in the statute.
I'm still saying it's $1,000. So keep that in mind.
Any additional discussion, supervisors, on the amended resolution? Supervisor Stauffer.
I have an amendment. to exclude standalone bathrooms? Parks.
Parks.
Park restroom facilities.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, I'm still a little unclear. Restate your amendment, please.
So where it would say all county buildings except for standalone bathrooms? If there's better wording to say that, bathrooms in parks?
You're suggesting bathrooms in the parks?
Is that what you're, I didn't.
That's what you're
I'm
addressing?
trying to address. I didn't.
Well, then probably you should say, suggestion only bathrooms in the parks?
Sure.
Agreeable?
Are there any of those in the fairgrounds? That might be another place.
There are public bathrooms at the fairgrounds?
Is that a county-owned building though? Okay. Okay, maybe standalone bathrooms would be, cover that.
And maybe instead of standalone, we say freestanding?
Sure.
We're wordsmithing on the fly here, but freestanding bathrooms.
Or maybe structures that only contain bathrooms?
Well, no, now that's a building.
Yeah.
It's all about buildings.
I shouldn't be making your motion for you. What do you want it to say, Supervisor?
I would like the opinion of corporate counsel on the wording.
Yeah.
Buildings that
What's
are
your
just
intent?
bathrooms, specifically in parks or at the fairgrounds, it's a building that's just a bathroom where otherwise they'd be able to carry in, so you don't have issues with them going into the bathroom.
Would it be facilities that have direct, restroom facilities have direct access to the outside?
That would be another way to put it.
I think what you're getting to is
Why?
if someone is in a park with a gun, that they can conceal carry. I think what he's trying to get to is something that we had heard in public. Board Chair, may I?
Supervisor Horn, Mayor Horn, you have the floor.
My apologies for speaking out of order. I think what he's getting at is what we had heard in public protection was if someone can conceal carry at a park, county park, which is still would be allowed, to use the restroom facility, whether it's a porta potty or a restroom at that facility, they would have to put their gun away before they even went to the restroom. So I think what Supervisor Stauffer is trying to get to is kind of try and carve out the restroom facilities, and that's why I'm suggesting if a restroom facility has outside access, that they be excluded even though they are a county-owned building.
Is that what you're,
Yes.
okay. Supervisors, are you clear? The request?
I think at this point.
Discussion on this amendment. Supervisor Malik.
We know how the Health and Human Services Board feels about their campus, but we haven't had input from the Fair Board nor from the committee that oversees the parks. And it seems to me that before we start, I mean, this recent discussion just indicates the complexities that we have introduced by making it apply to all county buildings. And I think we ought to hear from those committees.
Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. To answer Supervisor Malik's question, he's kind of zeroing in on it. We at the Community Development Committee are in the process of revising the Parks Ordinance because it's in violation of state statute. Counties cannot restrict people from bringing a gun to a county park. It says that right in there very clearly. So we're going to be amending our Parks Ordinance. Now, if we're going to try to somehow wordsmith an ordinance here that says, well, that building, that's a county-owned building, therefore we're going to do a gotcha if you need to use the restroom. I just find this unbelievable that we're even entertaining that.
Are you speaking in In support or in opposition to the amendment? My confusion is that you seconded the amendment.
I second the amendment, which is to say that we are excluding restrooms and standing that could possibly be in parks, right? And since the law states, state statute states that we cannot restrict a person from bringing a gun to a park, why would we be thinking we could somehow keep them out of a bathroom?
So you're speaking in favor of the amendment?
Yes,
Okay.
I second.
Supervisor Schrank.
Thank you. The question I have on this is that I think it's in September, the people the carry and conceal people have a kind of get-together at the fairgrounds down in Glenwood City, and they take over they rent the fairgrounds out for their conference or meeting that they have down there. And if we restrict it, then the fairgrounds won't be able to, or the fair committee will not be able to rent it out to them.
Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you, Board Chair. It strikes me that Supervisor Stauffer's amendment, as it pertains to parks, might make some sense. But to me, to implement or pass this amendment and have it be in effect at the county fairgrounds doesn't make much sense because of this, in my mind. If I'm concealed carrying a weapon and I go to the fairgrounds under the potential resolution we might pass, I can't go into any of the buildings at the fairgrounds. But if we pass this amendment, I can go to the bathroom. That's very confusing to me.
Supervisor Stauffer.
There's a lot to do at the fair outside of buildings.
Have we exhausted discussion on this amendment? It's my understanding that it reads that we would amend the amended resolution that's in front of us by excluding stand-alone restrooms. What I'm unclear is where you are suggesting that be inserted, Supervisor.
I believe there were two spots where it would make sense.
At the same spots where we're talking about county-owned buildings?
I believe so.
Okay.
It's not specific to parks or fairgrounds, no. It's just freestanding.
Just freestanding. That, right? I believe that's what's in front of us. So supervisors, we will proceed to vote on an amendment that would exclude freestanding restroom facilities. Does not specify parks. This is on a motion from Supervisor Stauffer, second by Supervisor Hermsen. Proceed to vote on the amendment only. A tie vote means that the amendment fails. We are back to the original resolution as amended. Discussion on the resolution prohibiting firearms in county-owned buildings. Have we exhausted ourselves? Any additional discussion? Any supervisor that wishes to comment on the resolution as amended? Supervisor Hermsen.
Thank you, Board Chair. I'm curious, I'd like to hear an opinion from Corp Counsel on what kind of standing would we have should this be challenged? And what could be the ramifications to the county if we were to lose in a lawsuit?
In response to the first question, the statute allows the county to take the action that it's proposing to take. And, in my opinion, and if a legal challenge is brought against the county that would find that the action taken by the county board is illegal, then I don't think anything beyond changing our resolution or the regulation would come on the county. I don't think there would be any financial implications for a court action finding against the county.
You may.
Could you, are you aware of any other counties that have put this restriction in place in Wisconsin?
Of the counties that I'm aware of that have taken action, and it might be a dozen, I think 10 have and 2 haven't.
That's through across, to do a countywide situation like we're talking here, or was that more towards the one specific building, for instance, like in our situation here?
I believe it was all county buildings that were included in these resolutions from 10 or so counties.
Board Chair, I hope board members realize that down at the Capitol, they don't have a restriction down there. And look at the turmoil that went on this spring. Also keep in mind, the Supreme Court resides inside the Capitol building, and yet they're allowed to carry concealed in there. I'd like to know, what are we afraid of? What is it that, why are people, and we've seen the vote here, what are you scared of a law-abiding citizen? I would suggest you keep that in mind when you vote.
Supervisor Malik.
It seems to me that we are in a time of transition, and we're talking about perceptions, and we don't have reliable data or statistics pertinent to our specific situation. We've got a brand new Wisconsin law that is not perfect. I mean, some of this discussion has illustrated in ways in which it could at least be clearer, perhaps reach different outcomes, but at least be clearer. And some of the comments that have been made go to this effect. What is it that causes some citizens to be apprehensive about the possibility that other citizens will, for the first time, be carrying weapons concealed? A situation which should make everybody safer is perceived by some as making everybody more at risk. In other words, we've got some counterintuitive things going on here. And reluctant as I am, that's nevertheless why I think the right thing to do here is to provide some out for the future, and that would be a sunset provision. And so I'm going to move that this resolution, which would now, as it's now been amended, would prohibit firearms in all county buildings, should sunset a year from today. And that would be done by adding a sentence after line 63 would be, further be it resolved that this resolution shall become null on November 1, 2012.
You offer that as a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second from Supervisor Stauffer. Discussion on the amendment. Supervisor Norton Bowman.
Thank you, Board Chair. I'd like to ask, with all due respect to Supervisor Malik, I'm not certain I understand the reason for this amendment. Can you be a little more explanatory, please?
Well, may I?
You may.
It seems to me, for one thing, there may be clarifications coming from the legislature. We've heard some talk already about a trailer bill, at least in our administration committee. There was some discussion of the likelihood of a trailer bill which would have clarifications. I think we're also, quite naturally the question was asked and answered earlier, what are other counties doing? We've got major uncertainties over the liability question. There's one school of thought, and this was discussed in the administration committee, one school of thought that immunity which the owner of a building enjoys if they allow concealed carry. They're under the basic law, the umbrella law, if people who concealed carry and have a permit for it, of course, come into that building and something bad happens, the owner of the building has immunity from liability. But if they post the building and then something bad happens, then the owner of the building is liable if there's a tie-in between the bad thing that happened and the ownership. Now, some lawyers apparently say that's exactly what the law means on its face. So, for example, if we ban weapons in the New Richmond campus, something bad happens, we are sued, and there's a connection between nobody being there able to defend an employee, for example, then we'd have liability. Other lawyers are saying, oh no, that's not what the law means, it only applies to private buildings. So that's uncertain at this point as to which way it goes. So those are three things that occur to me as things that we might all look at this quite differently a year from now. And if we decide that it was right now and it's right a year from now, we could readopt it and take out the sunset provision. But it would automatically bring it to our agenda if we have a sunset provision in it. That's my thinking.
Supervisor Norton-Baumann.
Thank you, Board Chair. My recollection of our administration committee meeting where this issue was discussed ad nauseum, quite frankly, is that our risk manager came to our committee and said that she had just come from a meeting of our insurance carrier, and the insurance carrier's attorney, I don't want to put words in her mouth if she's here, otherwise, is she here? Yeah. Perhaps she could come forward and tell us what she said, because my understanding of what she said is that municipalities are not involved in the issue that Supervisor Malik is bringing up concerning potential liability if a building is posted.
But I already said that. I said that there are two legal points of view on this. And I summarized that view.
Chair inquires if Risk Manager Ziliak wants to comment. I'm not asking you to, I'm asking if you want to.
I think Buck did accurately say that we don't know at this point in time. There are several schools of thought as to the liability issue. The session that I was at, basically the lawyer said that the immunities that are already available to governmental entities probably aren't likely going to come under this law. But of course, we won't know until that plays out in court. So there are all kinds of other governmental immunities that we have that would likely apply, but we won't know until the courts rule on that.
Any additional discussion on the amendment, which is to adopt a sunset clause? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. This is amendment number 3. So far, we have adopted amendment 1. Amendment 2 failed. This is amendment number 3. This would adopt a sunset clause by adding an additional, further be it resolved, to insert the date of 1 November 2012 as the sunset or termination of this resolution. All in favor of the amendment, which comes on a motion from Supervisor Malik with a second by Supervisor Stoffer, now vote. And this also is a tie vote, and this also fails. We now have adopted amendment number 1. Amendments 2 and 3 have both failed on tie votes. And supervisors, we return once again for discussion to the amended resolution, which is a resolution prohibiting firearms in county-owned buildings. Any discussion on the amended resolution? Supervisor Rebholz.
Mr. Chairman, I call for the motion.
I will take that as a friendly request to end debate. That is a motion for closure. If there is no objection, I will not proceed to a vote on the motion for closure, but take that as a friendly request, and I think the body language confirms that. So debate will end, and we will proceed to vote. On a motion by Supervisor Wentz with a second by Supervisor Larson. And the amendment that was offered as amendment number 3 is included. So you are now voting on a resolution prohibiting firearms in county-owned buildings. Supervisors, proceed.
Just a minute. Roger, put your second up there. No, Roger.
No, it's Roger Larson. Ready to vote? And the resolution passes on a vote of 9-7. And the resolution is adopted. Agenda item number 8 is a resolution to charge back municipalities due to incorrect real estate taxes. This resolution comes to us from the Administration Committee, and Chair would entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Seacard, second by Supervisor Hurchin. Brian. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, supervisors, this is a resolution to charge back municipalities due to incorrect real estate taxes. Presented on a motion by Supervisor Seacard, second by Supervisor Brian Hurchin. Proceed to vote. And this is approved unanimously. Resolution number 9 is a resolution to amend the 2011, that's the budget year that we're currently in, to amend this budget to appropriate funds to the Coalition for the St. Croix River Crossing. This comes to us from the Administration Committee. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Rebholz, second by Supervisor Wentz. Discussion. Supervisor Stoffer.
Taking $9,500 from the contingency fund, I don't know, it's important to get the bridge there, but taking emergency funds doesn't seem right, and we're tight with other things. I just don't think this is the time.
Discussion.
And I don't think this is the bridge. You've heard me say that before.
Any additional discussion? Maybe some explanation as to the reason for a budget amendment and the utilization of contingency fund dollars, and I'll simply ask Pat for that explanation. This has been approved in the administration committee, but upon reevaluation, we decided that this does require board approval, because even though it's contingency fund dollars, which was approved in the budget, the line item for the use of the contingency fund for this specific purpose was not originally approved by the board.
It's technical wording in the statute that contingency fund use is to be used to supplement a county department budget. Technically, we didn't have a line item in the administrator's budget for the River Crossing Coalition, although there were five. It was initially, we transferred a year ago $500 for the same purpose. It was determined that to make it clean, it should be treated as a budget amendment, because it really isn't supplementing any one specific departmental budget. So it would be treated as a budget amendment. It would still be taken out of the contingency fund, but it would require, I believe, a two-thirds vote of this board to approve this as a budget amendment.
Any additional discussion? Supervisor Armisen.
Thank you, Board Chair. What did the county gain by giving $9,500 to a lobbying group for the St. Croix River River Bridge, when we basically passed a resolution that we would be in favor of a bridge? I guess I'm curious why we would need to spend contingency dollars to throw a further stamp on that. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
You were at the annual meeting. Why don't I?
It's a huge project, and there's lots of members of the coalition, and it's the coalition's belief, and I support that there needs to be a concerted, coordinated effort to move this along. It's a complicated project requiring extensive work in both houses of the legislature, and the group that has been retained to coordinate this effort has done a good job with it, but they need funding to support themselves. And most municipalities, I think all the municipalities, with the exception of the little snafu in Stillwater, has supported the coalition, including our partner, Washington County. And there's many governmental and there's many private members of this coalition. It's not just government. It includes an extensive network of private sector employers that have contributed to the coalition along with governmental. And a lot of work has been done, but the way I see it, they're at the 10-yard line, and they need to punch this across the line. And these funds will go a long way towards supporting a very coordinated effort representing not only St. Croix County, but our partners to the west as well.
But wouldn't you say that, for one, we didn't retain this group. We didn't enter into a contract with them that I'm aware of. And I think if that was the group that was here and presented the bridge project to this board, I don't know if you were here or not.
Yes, I was.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
And I think, we didn't have overwhelming support for their, there might have been a majority support, but there wasn't unanimous support. I think there was a lot of discussion saying that what the project they're going for is over the top, and it needs to be curtailed. So I guess I'm coming back saying, we didn't retain these guys. They're kind of going on their own. Correct?
I wouldn't say they're going on their own. This board, prior to my arrival, went on record in support of the river crossing project, and that's what the coalition is moving towards. There is a difference of opinion on, the style of the bridge and the cost and what have you, but I'm not going to get into that debate. But the coalition itself has done a lot of work on our behalf in forwarding our support for that project, and that comes with a price tag.
Any additional discussion? Supervisor Norton Baumann.
Thank you. I can vote in support of this resolution because I believe that it's the most important thing for our area that we have a decent transportation system to provide for potential economic development in the St. Croix Valley.
Any additional discussion?
To further the comments, I think it is the number one issue or the number one thing for economic development for St. Croix County if we can get this bridge in. I'll disagree with Supervisor Malik. I think it is the right bridge. It is the right place. It's the right time. We've kicked this thing down the road for 50-some years. It's time to build the bridge.
Supervisor Malik?
I think this is a great bridge design for Polk County, Barron County, and places outside of St. Croix County. But a smaller bridge with a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit would be just fine for St. Croix County and would be outstanding for New Richmond.
Supervisors, are you ready to vote? This is a resolution amending the 2011 county budget to appropriate funds to the Coalition for the St. Croix River Crossing, those funds coming from the 2011 contingency fund. This does require a 2/3 vote of the board. Proceed to vote. And it is approved.
It's 13 2/3 of.
Yes.
31.
Yes, that's exactly 2/3.
19.
Supervisors, that completes our agenda. As far as action items are concerned, we do have one more item. This is not an action item, nor is it a discussion item. This is a report that comes from the Transportation Committee as the result of an inquiry that was made by a supervisor on a specific question in compliance with our bylaws. This is a report within the required period of time, and this is a report from the Transportation Committee with respect to the current usage of the vehicle registration fee program by St. Croix County. And Chair will call on the Chair of the Transportation Committee, Committee Chair Rebholz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the spring of 2007, the old Finance Committee, which we had, it's not part of the administration, it was a Finance Committee, challenged all departments in this county to find ways to increase revenues. The Highway Department staff and the Highway Committee explored ways to do that. After much discussion, a vehicle registration fee surfaced. The Wisconsin Legislative Bureau sent us a booklet of options open for our review on local government revenue options, which further opened our interest in the vehicle registration fee. An ordinance and resolution were drafted and presented to the 31-member board later in 2007, and they voted to put a registration fee into motion to start on January 1st, 2008. For the year of 2008, the Highway Department was faced with a $300,000 reduction of levy dollars going to the highway department. And for the year of 2009, we faced an additional $400,000 reduction of levy dollars for a total of $700,000 of levy dollars going to the highway department. We have averaged about $700,000 in registration fee each year, but the levy dollars have been reduced by the same amount. Since 2008, it has shown up as a budgeted item in the highway department operations. If the registration fee were to be dismantled, it would mean a reduction of $700,000 in operating revenue for the county maintenance and snow removal on county roads. The committee met and believes that it is not what citizens who use those roads daily want. They are pleased with the work that is being done now in both maintenance and snow removal, and we would all answer to them if the service on those roads is diminished by $700,000. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I report to you and to this board that the Highway Committee did exactly what they were asked to do, and we voted 5-0 to change nothing.
Thank you for your report. At this point, we're not discussing this item, so. Supervisor Urmson.
Thank you, Board Chair. I believe when I made the request that this was to be a item discussed prior to the budget debate. And I want to thank you for honoring that request.
At this point, I would take a moment of personal privilege and wish you all a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving. I thank you also for your attention and your civility today. This has been a long meeting. It's been contentious at times, but we have all remained civil in our discussion and our dialogue, and I appreciate that. So with that, we have concluded our agenda. You have some correspondence?
Just a couple things. Are you finished?
I am.
All right, I have no correspondence, but the Community Development Committee needs to stop up and sign these rezoning ordinances. And the other thing I want to point out, because we don't meet again until December 6th, is that a notice of the spring election will be placed in the paper in November, which includes the county supervisory positions. And there are deadlines to follow with regard to filing papers if you're considering running or not running. And so that will be published, and if you have any questions, you can contact me. But I do have packets in my office, and also the forms are available online. And the new district maps are online and also in my office.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.